Your phone just left a shiny 5G campus and rolled onto an older LTE highway. Calls stay up, data barely hiccups. How? The answer is not magic radio, it is registration. How your device proves who it is to the core network and keeps that identity alive when the access technology changes. Today, we unpack single registration and dual registration, two ways a 5G user equipment, or UE, can interwork with both the 5G core and the older evolved packet core. By the end, you will see which mode is mandatory, how temporary identities get mapped, and why the network, not the phone, picks the mode. Picture two cities that share your daily commute. One city is brand new, new radio access into a 5G core with N1 mode signaling. The other is familiar, EUTRA, that is LTE radio, into the evolved packet core with S1 mode signaling. Your phone supports both S1 mode and N1 mode. That is great for coverage. It is also a headache for mobility management. Mobility management is the set of procedures that track where you are, keep security fresh, and decide whether you are attached or registered. If the phone treated each core as a totally foreign country every time it crossed the city line, every handoff would feel like a full airport immigration check. Sessions would drop, security would restart cold. Operators cannot live with that, so standards give the UE2 operating styles for interworking between EUTRA connected to EPC and NR connected to 5GC. Those styles are single registration mode and dual registration mode. The rest of this lecture is the detailed flow of each, with real-world examples, before we ever put the architecture diagram on screen. Here is the part that surprises people. The phone does not get to freestyle forever. In the registration exchange, the UE announces that it can do dual and single capabilities. Then the network chooses the mode. A registration accept comes back saying, for example, single. The phone obeys. Why does the network decide? Because the operator knows the topology, which AMFs and MMEs are paired, whether N26 is deployed, how much dual stack state the cores can hold, and what the roaming partner supports. The phone only knows its own radio view, and one rule is non-negotiable for Release 15 and later phones that support 5G core. Support of single registration mode is mandatory for any UE that supports both S1 mode and N1 mode. Dual registration mode is optional. If you remember only one compliance fact from this lecture, make it that one. Single registration mode is the master key model. A UE operating in single registration mode shall maintain one common registration for 5G mobility management, 5G and for Evolved Packet System Mobility Management, EMM. Think of one coordinated file at the network edge, not two separate guest books. In practice, the phone has only one active mobility management state at a time. That state is either the registration management state in the 5G core or the EMM state in the evolved packet core. It is never both at once. When the phone is sitting on 5G core access, it runs in 5G CNAS mode. When it is sitting on evolved packet core access, it runs in EPCNAS mode. NAS means non-access stratum, the layer above radio that talks mobility and session management to the core. So at any moment, there is one truth about am I registered, one security conversation in flight, and one mobility state machine ticking. That is why single mode feels simpler for the device software stack. One path is hot, the other is dormant. Identities make the master key work across borders. The temporary identity in EPC is the EPS-GUTI. In 5G, it is the 5G GUTI. GUTI stands for Globally Unique Temporary Identifier, a privacy-friendly nickname the network assigns so your permanent subscription identity is not blasted over the air every time. In single registration mode, when the UE moves between EPC and 5GC, it maps the EPS GUTI to a 5G GUTI and vice versa. Mapping is the translation layer. The phone and the paired core nodes can recognize this is the same registration, even though the string of bits looks different on each side. Here is the security payoff. To enable reuse of a previously established 5G security context when the phone returns to 5GC, the UE also keeps its native 5GG UTI and its native 5G security context while it is camping in EPC. It does not throw the 5G credentials in the trash just because it dipped into LTE. Analogy: you leave building new for building old, but you keep the new building badge and fingerprint enrollment in your wallet. When you walk back into new, security waves you through instead of re enrolling you from scratch. That is context reuse, and it is why single mode can hand mobility off with less crypto drama. Let us walk a commute in single registration mode. Morning, you are downtown on North R, registered to the 5G core through an AMF. Your phone is in 5G CNAS mode. One registration management state is active. You hold a 5G GUTI and a live 5G security context. You drive toward the suburbs. Coverage flips to EUTRAN, tied to EPC. The phone maps identities, moves into EPCNAS mode, and now the active mobility management state is EMM at the MME. Critically, it still keeps the native 5G GUTI and 5G security context stashed for later. Afternoon, you return downtown. Radio finds NR again. Because the native 5G identity and security context were retained, the phone can re enter 5GC without a cold start of the entire security story. From the user's view, the video call never asked you to re authenticate. From the standards view, one common registration for 5G MM and EMM stayed coordinated the whole time. That is the single mode flow in the wild. Either or on the wire, one common registration in the bookkeeping, and a carefully kept 5G backpack when you visit EPC. Dual registration mode is the two passports model. A UE operating in dual registration mode handles independent registrations for 5GC and EPC using separate RRC connections. RRC is radio resource control, the signaling that sets up and tears down the radio link. Separate RRC connections means the phone can literally maintain two radio side conversations that do not collapse into one state machine. Unlike single modes either or, dual mode can have both. The phone may be registered to 5GC only, to EPC only, or to both 5GC and EPC at the same time. The mobility management states are independent. What happens on the EPC side does not automatically rewrite the 5GC side. Analogy: two ID cards. One badge for the old building, one for the new. Different security desks. You can badge into one, the other, or flash both if the campus allows simultaneous access. There is no forced mapping of a single guest book entry. Each core keeps its own story about you. Because the registrations are independent, the identities stay independent too. In dual registration mode, the UE maintains a 5G GUTI and an EPS GUTI on their own tracks. For registrations toward 5GC, the phone provides its native 5G GUTI if one was previously allocated by 5GC. For attach or tracking area update toward EPC, it provides its native EPS GUTI if EPC previously allocated one. No mandatory translate and overwrite step like single mode. Each core speaks its own temporary name for you. That independence is powerful for interworking designs where both cores must stay warm. For example, when an operator wants a foot in EPC for legacy voice or roaming partners while also camping 5G sessions. It is also heavier, more state, more radio signaling, and more chances for the two sides to disagree about where you really are, unless the phone and network are careful. Dual registration mode is intended for interworking between EPS over EUTERN and 5G system over NR. That is its job description. There is a sharp operational rule that protects the 5G path. A dual registered UE should not send its EU-TERN capability to NR access when it is connected to 5GS over NR. Why? To avoid being handed over to a 5G C-connected EU TER cell in a way that undermines the dual registration plan. Plain language. When you are on pure 5G radio into the 5G core, do not advertise, by the way, I also speak classic LTE, in a way that invites the network to bounce you onto an LTE carrier that is anchored the wrong way. Advertising the wrong capability is how you get an unwanted downgrade or a messy handoff into the wrong core attachment. So, dual mode is not always show every radio trick you own. It is show the right capability and the right access so independent registrations stay intentional. Before any mode can work, the phone has to tell the truth about what it supports in both directions. During an EU-TRAN initial attach, a UE that supports both 5GC and EPC-NAS shall indicate its support of 5G-NAS in the UE network capability information element. That is the LTE attach saying, I also speak 5G-NAS. Symmetrically, during registration to 5GC, a UE that supports both shall indicate its support of EPC-NAS. The 5G registration says, I also speak EPC-NAS. Those bits are not vanity flags. The indication may be used to give priority toward selection of a combined PGWT plus SMF node for UEs that support both EPC and 5GC-NAS. In other words, the network prefers a session management anchor that can serve you on both cores, so when you move, your PDU sessions and PDN connections have a sensible home. Real-world stakes. Pick the wrong anchor and every intersystem move becomes a rebuild. Pick a combined PGWC plus SMF and the data plane has a bridge already waiting. Capability signaling is how that preference gets triggered. Now that the story is in your head, look at the architecture. On the left of the classic slide, registration is a three-step dance. The UE sends registration with capabilities dual and single. The network chooses the mode. Registration accept returns the chosen mode, often single. On the right, two stacks. Single mode 5G UE lines to MME for EPC-NAS and to AMF for 5G core NAS, marked either or. The note says the UE maintains one common registration for 5G MM and EMM. Dual mode 5G UE, the same two boxes, but the link says can have both simultaneously, and states are independent. The banner underneath drives the compliance point home. Release-15 5G UEs supporting 5G core are mandated to support single registration mode. Hold that picture against the commute example and the two passport example. Single mode is one coordinated registration with mapped GUTIs and a kept 5G security backpack. Dual mode is independent registrations, native GUTIs, optional simultaneous state, and careful capability advertising on NR. The diagram is the map, the procedures are the journey. Pull the threads together. Interworking between EU-TRAN to EPC and NR to 5GC needs a deliberate registration strategy. Single registration mode keeps one common 5G MM and EMM registration, one active mobility state, mapped temporary identities, and retained 5G security context when visiting EPC. It is mandatory for dual mode capable UEs. Dual registration mode keeps independent registrations over separate RRC connections, native GUTIs on each side, and the option to be in 5GC, EPC, or both. It is built for EPS and 5G system interworking, with the guardrail that a dual registered phone should not advertise EU-TRAN capability toward NR while on 5GS over NR. The network chooses the mode after the phone declares dual and single capability. Capability bits on attach and on 5G registration also steer the network toward a combined PGWC plus SMF when both NAS stacks are supported. Next time your phone glides from a 5G campus onto LTE without dropping the call, you will know which bookkeeping trick made that feel effortless and which rules kept the cores from fighting over you.